I've been in Vietnam 20 years and I was 10 years in Hanoi. My kids were at the French school there. Theo was very happy, was developing trilingually, which is fantastic. He had a good friend group, he was very happy. Finn was miserable, it didn't work for her at all, so I wasn't happy to keep them there. I wanted them to be together. So I looked at the other international schools in Hanoi and I was never on an expat package, I just couldn't pay for them. So that and a few other factors led us down to Hoi An and a homeschooling environment initially. Not with me, because I would have been a terrible teacher, but with a small group of 2 or 3 families, hired 41 teacher to work with our kids. And it worked fine for the first year or so, but by then Theo was, I think, 9, and a couple of the other families had slightly older kids. And just again, there wasn't that social diversity, or, and they were getting to the point where they needed more academic specialisation. So Muggins here went, I'll do a school. Having no idea what I was letting myself in for, but that was the genesis. We parents were sitting together in the Dingo Deli in its former location. Going, well, what are we going to do about this? How are we going to solve this problem? I was like, well, I've got time. I'll start a school. The reason that I was fool enough to think that I could was the confidence that I gained at UWC. The support that you get in the right kind of learning environment to build you as a person that makes you somebody who thinks you can do things. Ultimately, you can. It just might take a lot more out of you than you anticipated. If you believe in yourself, you can do anything. I do believe that, and I got that from UWC. So that's why it started, and how it became what it is very much the values that I learned at UWC, which I didn't realise I was absorbing at the time. And it was only when my kids reached the point where they were growing up but I wanted to have some guidance over what and how they were learning, that I realised how important my own experiences have been, and something really deep inside me went, I have a feeling of what this should be and I'm not getting it yet. I'm not finding it. And that was really why I was fool enough to put my hand up and say, I'm going to do this, because I had a really step was coincidentally meeting Sue. So we were again at the deli, sitting around having a coffee, waiting for the kids to come downstairs because their homeschool was above the old deli. So parents would meet and just grab a coffee and wait for them to come down and go home. So sitting there, and it was the deli, so there's tourists as well. Yeah. It was this Aussie family on the table next to me and chatting to one of the deli staff. What are you doing here? You're on holiday? Yes. And yes, we're on holiday, but we're touring Asia. We've left Australia. We're looking for a place to settle. Oh, what do you do? And I'm just listening in on this, not intentionally, they just happened to be right next to me. Oh, well, I'm a teacher, I'm a kindergarten teacher, says the mother. And this is about 10 days after I've had this conversation, well, I'll start school. So they ordered their coffee and I turned around and said, excuse me. So Sue and I started chatting, and they'd already decided that they really liked it here. They were looking for a place to settle, they were enjoying Hoi An. So she was as much of an idiot as I was and went, sure, I'll do this with you. So they stayed, and she and I went, yeah, we'll do this. I've got the idea, you've got the experience. And that's how it started. On Chong Kok Toan Street, which is off Kut Ai, but on the other side from where we are now. So we rented a villa. That was our first kindergarten. So we started off just as a kindergarten, even though our own children then continued to homeschool for quite some time, because the legislative situation here is such that it's much more difficult to set up a full school than it is a kindergarten if you're a foreign investor. So I was lucky from my previous life in Hanoi as a journalist that I knew a lot of people who could help me make these decisions. So I knew lawyers, I knew accountants, I knew business advisors and so on, because I've been working with them in my capacity as a business writer. So I drew on a lot of advice from old friends who were incredibly generous with their time and their energy and their expertise. The suggestion was start by getting a license for a kindergarten, because anyway, the bulk of people who will move to a small town like this are going to be those with smaller children, not older children. Then I applied for the licensing for a full school once we got the kindergarten license, and then we rented one of our buildings here and we sort of added as we go. That was 2012, so that was when we got our full license to operate a full international school. So we're now licensed from 2 years old to 18 years old. So when the market is ready for us to offer a program for older kids, we do have the licensing in place and we can do that. But that took about 18 months to get that paperwork through. There was never a big investor. There was never a lot of money. Sue and I wanted to do it our way. We had our idea, we had our vision of what we wanted to achieve, and bringing somebody else in would have obviously altered that dynamic. So we started the school with $50,000, which was what I had in my savings plan. That was it. I was incredibly lucky that another older friend of mine from when I lived in Shanghai loaned me a little bit more. And so that's what we had to work with, which doesn't get you very far with the Vietnamese government. They're like, what do you mean you're going to start a school with under $100,000? You're not serious. So they didn't take us very seriously, and they'd never done that in this province before either. An international school is very sensitive because you're dealing with education. You're dealing with forming young people and forming minds. They didn't want to get it wrong. They didn't want to get the wrong people involved and then be slapped on the wrist by their bosses in Hanoi. It took a very, very long time. So the name took forever. I just couldn't think of what we would call this school. The obvious thing was Hoi An International School. You've got the Hanoi International School, you've got the International School of Ho Chi Minh City. Everybody has an international school of. I had this really clear vision of this is how I want my kids to grow up and this is the influences I want around them. And I hadn't found that in the other cities. I just couldn't come up with something that made sense. And then during this initial period, I did not sleep very much for quite a long time. And it was one of those sleepless nights, and it was like 3 something a.m. and I hadn't slept yet and knew that I was going to set my alarm for another 3 hours from now on. And green shoots just popped into my head. From where, I have no idea. I knew that there would be this sustainability influence on what we wanted to do. So there's your green. Plus, we're in Hoi An. There is so much green. It's so beautiful. And my favourite green colour, actually this is not far off it, is that young rice, the young paddy rice before it really ripens. And the shoots, yes, we're in Asia, there's bamboo shoots, there's rice shoots, but children, they're growing, they're starting from this small point and they're growing, and our job is to help them grow, to develop them. So it just came from nowhere. I was half asleep, half awake, furious with myself that I wasn't properly asleep. And then this name just came in my head and I went, yeah, I've got it now, that's it. So Sue did the first logo and it's lovely, but we ended up changing it because it's more kindy style. So as the school grew, we thought we needed something a little bit more grown up. But she did the original artwork. Somebody took what she had done and developed it. We got somebody to do that professionally. So that was there, but it was a hand-drawn design, not a computer-generated one, and the print was much more kindy style, and the bamboo was much more sort of a drawn, bit of bamboo with lots of bits coming off rather than more the stylistic one that we have now. Community of, I hope, mostly like-minded people, a community that cares, and it's about somehow creating and maintaining and developing a microcosm of society that offers its members what I was so lucky to have when I was young. And I got it in different ways. I got it through school. I got it older than most of our kids are. A lot of the support I got from my parents. There are limits to what a school can do. There is a point at which a school has to say, I'm sorry, you're the parent, or this is something that's done outside of the school hours, or that we can't be all and everything to the children with us. But it is possible for a school to be a lot more than just classrooms and teachers. That's what I think we are. More of the same. My worry is that if you upscale it too much, it loses its soul. And I do think the school has a huge soul at the moment, and that's what I'm most proud of. And you do run the risk if the school gets too big that becomes diluted. So it's finding that sweet spot where it's a big enough community that we can increase the services that we offer, we can increase the social interactions that we have, especially for our older kids, which is still quite limited, but not getting to the point where we become just another school where you tick classroom boxes. It's a community, and that's my hope, is that it can retain that, in my mind, what it should be, because anybody, as I said, can build classrooms and put a teacher in it and tick academic boxes. And my hope is that we can retain that and build upon it and continue it, but make it about kids. It's not about money, it's about people. And there is a lot of money going into education because that's the assumption, that's what people are at. And that's fine, I have no objection to people setting up a business to make money. Great, go for it. But these are people's lives you're forming. These are unformed people. Even adult education is just about learning, academic learning. Those people exist as people by the time they get to you. But with the age groups that we're dealing with here, these are people who are not yet fully formed people. And how much time do they spend in school? how much are they observing and learning about being a person from the people around them in school? You know, you're not forming them to be a certain type of person. They will get there, but you have to help them along the road to get them that confidence, to give them the scope of opportunity, the scope of possibilities, that they can then choose which road they want to take. But they need to have the confidence, they need to know that they're supported. You've got to keep it about the kids. It is all about who they are and how you can help them become who they are.